I'm not gonna waste your time. I'm gonna get right to showing you the most popular way to tie a tie. Then I'll show you my best tips, like how to get the length right, how to make a dimple, and what to do if the knot doesn't look right. Next, I'll show you some other knots that you should probably be aware of. And if you stick around to the end, I'm gonna share my most important advice about neckties. If you've seen any of our other videos, I'm so grateful you're back. If you're new here, roll intro. Suit up and subscribe. The adventure awaits. As I said, I'm going to get right to showing you the most popular knot. I'll first show it fast, and then I'll show it slower. So this knot is called the double Windsor, or the full Windsor, or some people just call it the Windsor. So you throw your necktie over your neck, make the blade longer than the tail, cross, then go up through what I call the neck hole. Then you go behind the knot, down through the neck hole, in front of the knot, up through the neck hole, and then down through the front loop. That is how you tie it. Stick around for tips to get it the perfect length and the perfect shape. So if you didn't follow that totally, don't worry. I'm going to do it again slower. So we have our necktie over our neck. Again, we want the blade longer than the tail. And the first step is to cross the blade in front of the tail, and I usually kind of pinch it right here, close to my neck. And then you go up, take the blade up through the neck hole, and you're still on the same side that you cross from right to left, and so you still have the necktie on the left. And then from the left, you're going to take the blade in back of the knot, and then you're going to take the blade down through the neck hole. Okay? And at this point, you have the center of your knot. And I like to just make sure that this is tightened and shaped correctly. And then we're going to put the front loop on our knot by just going from right to left in front of the knot. And I leave a little bit of space here, because the next step is to take the blade now up through the neck hole, and then you finish tying the knot by just taking the blade down through this loop that you left open. So at this point, the knot is tied. Basically, you just get it good and tight. So this is an example of something that you might run into, and this is exactly why I'm going to go into some tips right now. Hopefully you had better luck than me the first time and your tie looked perfect, but you may have hit a couple common problems, like the tie being too short or too long, or the knot doesn't look perfect. Don't worry, I'm going to walk you through each one of those potential issues, and then I'm going to show you some other knots that you might want to be aware of. Common problem is that the necktie will be too long or too short. And this is a problem for everyone. Even the most advanced tie tiers run into this problem because of the many things that can affect how a tie will land in the end, like the knot you're using, length of your torso, the thickness of the inner lining of the necktie, and there are other variables as well. So when you go to tie a tie, you're almost never going to get it right the first time, but this trick that I'm going to teach you is going to help you get it right the second time every time. And the trick starts at the beginning when the necktie is over your neck. You want to pay attention to how long you make the tie. So what I do is I drop my hand straight down, I drop the blade of the tie down, and then I pay attention to how much longer the necktie is than my finger. And so in this case, I'm going to start with about 4 inches. And then go ahead, tie the tie as you normally would. I purposely put it at 4 inches because I knew that that was going to end up being short because, you know, I've just tied this tie before. But now you can see I'm about 2-3 inches short. So the trick is, if this happens, I just go back. I know I need 3 more inches. So I go back to here, and instead of leaving 4 inches at the bottom, I'm going to add a couple inches so I have 6 or 7, then go ahead and retie that. and voila, perfect length on the second time. Typically, if you pay attention and think through it, you can get it perfect on the first try, but in case you don't, as long as you paid attention, you know how to adjust the tie, either up or down, based on where you started. So the second tip is actually the sponsor of this video. It's our YouTube community. You can join for a low monthly fee. You get badges on your comments, you get early access to videos, and you help us bring you better content in the future to help you look your best and wise up, suit up, and stand up. Oh, and I should say that making videos is expensive, and your support helps us increase the quality of videos that we can do in the future. So thank you so much for subscribing. Now we'll jump back to some other important tips, and then I'll show you important knots. All right, so another common problem is that the knot doesn't look right. And the reason this happens is because most videos just tell you to go ahead and tug on the wide end to finish your knot. Well, if you do that, it can look like this. If you look at it from the side, it's a little weird. It's a little bit small, it's kind of pointed out a little bit, and it can get a lot worse than that. You can see right here, there's a weird fold on the tie. So let me tell you a tip to get this right every time. All right, so the tip is just have a little bit of finesse when you're tightening. What I do is I take my thumb, and as I pull up on the back of the blade, you'll see that the front tightens. And I just do that until the front is almost tight, and then once I get it almost there, I give a little tug on the end, and voila, the knot looks perfect every time. 3 tips down, 2 more tips to go. And after all the tips, I'm going to show you several knots that you should be aware of. All right, so another common problem is you may want a dimple and you didn't get a dimple when you tied the tie. So I'm going to try, this tip actually starts early in the knot. If you want a dimple, once you cross and go up through your neck hole, you're going to want to leave a lot of the material wrapped around the tail. And then when you go behind and through the other, you want to just make sure that this center knot has as big a V as you can get. So this is a little more loose than I instructed you at the beginning before we put the front piece on and finish the knot by going down through the front loop. So here at this point, you get the tie mostly tied, but then when you go to finish the knot, you take 2 thumbs and you put it behind the necktie, and then you pull straight down, or try to get that dimple to form. And if you've done it correctly, you should have a nice little dimple there in the middle. Now, if your necktie is skinny and you have a thick inner lining, those ties do not do dimples as well. So that could be another issue. But if your tie is skinny and you did V trick and then you pull with your thumbs, that is the trick. With wide ties, this is much easier because they just have more fabric and your thumb kind of guides it into place a little bit better. So that is how to do a dimple. A common problem is that the skinny end is too short to fit in the label. So it can flap around, and some people wear it like that on purpose, but I don't typically recommend that because if people see you walking around with your tail hanging out, it can make you look like a novice. Now, if people know you already, then they're probably not gonna care, but sometimes first impressions are important, and this can happen because maybe you like to tie your tie too long, or maybe your necktie is too short, maybe you're too tall, and so this happens quite a lot. So what is the solution? Well, one solution is just to tuck it in your shirt. Now, I don't like to do that because sometimes you can see it through your shirt. It's a little less noticeable if you're wearing like a suit coat, but it can still be noticeable. The second tip is to use a tie tack or a tie clip. A tie tack is really just like a pin, and I don't recommend tie tacks because you puncture a hole in the necktie and that can damage your ties, which are typically pretty expensive articles of clothing. So I don't recommend a tie tack, but you can use a tie tack. What I typically recommend is called a tie clip. And what you do is you just take the tie clip, press down on the side of the clip, it opens up, and then you attach the clip to your shirt. And this is a perfectly good solution. It's kind of nice too because it can keep your tie from flapping around a lot. So definitely recommend the tie clip. The other benefit to this solution is that I recently saw a popular video with women talking about the things that they love that men wear, and the tie clip was actually on that list, which surprised me because it's kind of an old school accessory. I don't see a lot of people wearing tie clips today, but maybe you should bring them back to impress the ladies. A couple other solutions to this problem is get a longer tie. So you can actually buy long ties if you're very tall and your ties either end up too short or with either the blade or the tail too short. You could start buying long ties, or you can choose a different knot. You remember I said that the double Windsor actually takes a lot of length? Well, I'm going to tell you a couple knots that you could use instead that take a lot less length. So keep watching, one of which is the 4-in-hand knot, the other is the half Windsor, and we'll go into those in just a moment. So hopefully those tips were helpful. I'm going to walk you through 5 knots that you should be aware of. The first was one I just mentioned, the half Windsor knot. The half Windsor takes a little less length than the other knot because there's less steps. So you still cross over, but instead of going up through the neck hole this time, you go behind the tail and then take the blade down through the neck hole, at which point you put on the front cover, and then you finish by going back up through the neck hole and down through the front loop. That is the half Windsor. So the only difference there is that, again, instead of crossing over and going up through the neck hole, you go behind and then down through the neck hole. So that's the half Windsor. Let me say this. The double Windsor is typically known by most people because they learned it as kids. And as a kid, your neckties are typically too long. So the double Windsor is perfect for kids. But now, gentlemen, we are adults. And so the number one knot I recommend for most people is the half Windsor. The next knot you should be aware of is actually called the schoolboy knot or the 4-in-hand knot. They're both the same knot. It's a great knot because it doesn't take a lot of length and it's really easy. For this, like I said, you don't need that much length. And what you do is you cross and then you go behind and cross again. And that's it. That's it for the center, and then you go up through your neck hole and then down through the front loop. So that's the 4-in-hand knot. This knot, when you tighten it, it's a little more asymmetrical. It has a fun history, but whenever you see an asymmetrical knot, it's most likely the 4-in-hand knot because it's a very popular knot. And it doesn't take a lot of length, so it's great. As you can see, perfect length. I don't suffer from any of the other problems I had with the double Windsor. So it's a great knot to have. It's a little bit rakish if you want to be a little less traditional while still, and it has a great history. I won't go into that in this video, but in future videos, I will talk about the history and mystique around the 4-in-hand knot. So the next knot you should know about is called the Pratt knot. This is actually tied with the fold on the outside, and what you do is you cross the tail over the wide end, then the blade goes down through your neck hole, goes behind, then down through the neck hole on the other side. At this point, it goes in front of the knot, and that's your front loop, which you then finish by going down through the front loop, and then you tighten. So that's the Pratt knot. Most people like the Pratt knot because it's symmetrical, and it takes a little less, slightly less fabric than the double Windsor. So the Eldredge is the next knot I want to talk about. It is part of a family of newer knots that are tied with the skinny end, tied with the tail. And some people would never consider wearing one of these newer knots. There is a section of the population that absolutely loves them. And I typically recommend them if you're going to wear them for a little more casual events. But we have a list of top 50 knots that you can check out. The Eldredge will eventually be on that list, as well as we started at 50 and are working our way forward. So check out that list. And the Eldredge is a very popular knot. Like I said, it's in the family of knots that are more modern. I call them modern knots. And the last knot I'll mention is the Onassis knot. This is one of my favorite knots. It's a more modern knot. It looks very traditional, and I just like the way that people react to it because most people don't even notice it. But then when someone notices it, it's like kind of a magic trick, or it's like, whoa, how did you tie that tie? So we have another video for that. It's already out. I'll put a link in the description below. But these are 5 knots you should be aware of besides the double Windsor, which is the most popular knot. And this brings us to the moment that I've been waiting for, to share my most important piece of advice for neckties. The necktie is to draw attention to you, to your face, not your body. Everything about a suit draws attention up to you and your face. So, when choosing a necktie, when choosing a knot, when choosing a pattern, remember the neckty's job, which is to draw attention to you. You go wrong whenever the necktie draws attention to itself. You want everything to work well. You want the suit to be monochromatic because it draws attention to the face. This is one reason why sometimes even shoes that are too flashy can distract from the real purpose of wearing a suit, which is one of my favorite quotes about suits. It was in Italian. The suit that makes the man. So anyways, the absolute best neckties and knots are subtle unless you know the rule and are deciding to break it for some reason. Remember, the goal is to complement your outfit, not compete with your outfit. And particularly, you don't want too many parts of your outfit competing. A good necktie is like a good friend. It's supportive, never distracting. I'm wearing our Patriot tie from MyNiceTie, a little bit lighter navy suit from Indochino, a Hemsley white French cuff shirt from Indochino. I have on temple stone cufflinks from Deseret Book, and a white pocket square with navy flowers that pairs well with the navy suit. It also has a little bit of red, which pairs with the color in the necktie. And I also have my Rockport wingtip tan shoes. If you made it this far, you should be proud of your newfound abilities. I'm very thankful you watched to the end. Leave a comment below and let me know why you're wearing a tie, especially if it's an interesting event or reason. And send an invite if you want. I'd hate to miss out on a chance to wear a suit. I truly hope you liked this video. If so, hit that like button so more people will elevate their style. And remember, growth begins when you subscribe. So hit that subscribe button as well. Until next time, keep looking classy.